Hello, ladies and gentlemen. If you were absent from 3rd or 7th period on Monday or Tuesday, May 11th or 12th, this video is for you. Again, it's really difficult to make up fully for a lesson when you're not there because you can't ask questions and you can't get just the information firsthand. So this is not the best substitute, but it is definitely something in case you just really couldn't make it. So let's talk about the lesson. So what did we do? We determined what sentencing youth should receive based upon their crime. How did we do this? We learned some legal terminology, like homicide terms, and we put ourselves in the judge's place to determine what each person, each adolescent deserved based upon their crime and their age. Why did we do this? So that we could critically examine what the age of responsibility means for an adolescent who has committed a crime. What I wanted you all to think about is, does the age of responsibility change based upon how serious their crime was? And so you will see once we start talking about it. I want to briefly explain the homicide terms that we discussed. So first-degree murder. A first-degree murder is any intentional murder that is willful and premeditated with some degree of forethought. Second-degree murder is any intentional murder that is not premeditated or planned in advance. A second-degree murder happens on the spot. So, how are these two different? Both of them have an intent to murder or an intent to kill. However, one of them is done impulsively, that's second-degree murder, and the other is done with a plan. Now, it's going to get a little bit more tricky when we talk about voluntary manslaughter. Voluntary manslaughter is any intentional killing that involves no prior intent to kill. In that way, it's like second-degree murder. However, it's different in that the circumstance is such that a normally reasonable person may temporarily become mentally or emotionally disturbed. So here's an example. If someone is killed during a bar fight, they just accidentally get hit by a stool. That could be second-degree murder. However, if the fight happened because the person discovered his or her spouse's infidelity, meaning the person found out that his or her spouse was cheating and went after the person who was cheating, this would be voluntary manslaughter. Okay, so lastly, this is kind of in its own category. Involuntary manslaughter is when a killing stems from a lack of intention to cause death, but involves an intentional or negligent act leading to death. So somebody has done something really dumb and somebody accidentally dies because of it. So for example, if a person is drunk driving and they hit another person, then that is considered involuntary manslaughter. Now that I have gone over those, you want to go to Nearpod, join.nearpod.com, use the code LJVTR, and you want to do the matching activity that I've left for you there. Now, for each of these cases, what you want to do is you want to go through them and you want to briefly think to yourself, what sentencing and charge do these adolescents deserve based upon what they did and to a degree based upon their age. Okay? And so I'm not going to go over the answers in the PowerPoint. If you'd like to know, just email me and I'll let you know. And so let's go over them very briefly. A troubled 17-year-old girl has slowly poisoned her parents each night at dinner. After 3 months, she came home to find them dead on the kitchen floor. The coroner's report indicated that cyanide poisoning caused their deaths. So we see a definite plan and intent to kill here, and our adolescent is 17 years old. Case 2. 3 16-year-olds were hanging out at the park drinking whiskey. One boy started shoving his friend. Soon the shoving escalated into punching. One boy tripped and his head hit a sharp-edged rock. The boy died before help arrived. So we see here there was no intent to kill. It happened in the moment. The boys were 16 years old and they were also drunk. Moving on. Suspicious that his girlfriend was cheating, a 16-year-old boy went to her house and found her in bed with his brother. Impulsively, he grabbed the nearest lamp and hit his brother on the head. His brother died 2 days later. So again, we see here no plan to kill, but we certainly see an intent to harm or kill the brother. We can also assume that because that the girlfriend was cheating and that the brother was cheating with the girlfriend, that this could cause a reasonable person to forget who they are in an emotional capacity. Lastly, case number 4, a 13-year-old boy broke into an auto parts business to steal hubcaps. The 17-year-old security guard picked up his boss's gun and fired 2 warning shots at the thief. The second shot hit the 13-year-old and killed him on the spot. Again, we see no plan here. We see no intent. This happened as a result of trying to warn the 13-year-old boy. Okay, so you guys decide for a few minutes what you think it should be. I'm going to keep going, and so what I would ask you to do is pause the video to think about it. But I need to get to the end so we can finish this long video. So first of all, the question that we talked about as a class is, should the punishment of a juvenile be determined by the seriousness of his or her crime? So for example, should we just look at the crime and say, okay, this is the punishment because of how horrible you acted or the horrible thing that you did? Or should there be other factors that judges consider? Next, in consideration of all these cases, how much responsibility should each juvenile take? So for example, although the 17-year-old killed the 13-year-old, how much responsibility should he take? It was an accident, but it was a really bad accident. Lastly, at what point is the punishment more harmful than the crime, and does that even matter? So let's say the 17-year-old was charged as an adult, even though he wasn't legally an adult at the time, and he was sent to adult prison for 15 years. If that's the case, should the judge be considering what kind of harm it would have on the 17-year-old? And does that matter? So these are things I want you to think about if you are making up for this lesson. Jot down a brief response to these questions and email them to me, either in Schoology or on my Gmail. If you have any questions, you know where to find me.